Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to Spring Clean Your Systems Data Governance. Now, this year's spring cleaning looks a little different than what Red Level has historically done. So, spring cleaning of years past, we would have an event at either of our locations in Novi or Grand Rapids where our clients and our community would bring in some of their old technologies and we would recycle them for free, make sure it was done properly and done securely. And then we would educate you guys about what is coming up in terms of new technologies, new software, and new things that you should be aware of, such as, end of service for some of our servers or end of service for crazy things like Skype for Business. So we'd like to take a quick second and thank you guys for always doing the right thing and recycling your e-waste with us in the past. For example, last year, we were able to recycle over 5,000 pounds of old tech and equipment. That's 60 monitors, full-size printers, hard drives, 200 desktops. That's a lot of desktops, 30 laptops, and quite a few servers. We will be having our spring cleaning recycling event again, but we will only do so when it's safe. So look forward to that to come soon. But last week we did have a little twist on our traditional spring cleaning. We went through Spring Clean Your Systems and IT Health Check. So this went through kind of the technologies that you have that are impacting your business, how you need to take a look at those critical IT systems in terms of how they impact your efficiencies and your securities. And we gave you a couple of recommendations based on, current environments and what growth plans and projections might be. Take a look at the recording at redlevelgroup.com/spring. But for today's webinar, we're going to be talking about spring cleaning your systems through data governance. I'd like to introduce my friend Val Lewandowski for today's webinar. Val, how are you doing today?
Hey Megan, I'm great, thank you. What an exciting event, spring cleaning our technology, all of our hardware, getting things out, refreshing what we need. It's definitely something that we need to do on a regular basis. And not only do we need to spring clean our hardware, we really need to spring clean our data too. I find it fascinating that we overlook one of the most important pieces of our businesses, and that is our data. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about bad data and how it's costly in more ways than one. So artificial intelligence is where technology is today, and it's not going away. Machine learning, which adapts predictive behavior analytics, is ever growing. It is consuming the way we approach decision making in our professional environments. However, without good data, it's difficult to make good business decisions. Bad data is valueless information and becomes a source of great burden and risk. For many organizations, data governance is not prioritized and in many cases not recognized. By overlooking data governance, organizations miss opportunities to measure success using analytics. The risk of having incorrect data not only have financial impact, but come with great cost to operational value, growth, and trust. Clean data is quite frankly one of your most valuable assets. If you were to measure the benefits that each type of information asset generates for your company, what would that number look like? If you were to quantify the financial value of information assets as if they were a balance sheet item, that asset begins to look much more valuable. So why are we not prioritizing data? Let's take a look at how prioritizing data brings value to your company. Today, we're going to take a look at your data in two ways: business analytics and records management. Let's start with analytics. So with good data at hand, there is an ease to accessing and sharing information, and we can present data with confidence. We're able to make intelligent business decisions based on real-time analytics. Without it, our decisions come with higher risk and greater cost. Knowing your business through key metrics reporting helps to identify opportunities to scale your business and cut losses when needed. And now, because you have proven time and time again through these reporting metrics, good data in solves for greater issues, you can rest assured you have solidified trust across the organization. This is what we hope for when we talk about clean data outcomes. So let's get in the zone. How do we get there? As an organization, you must prioritize data. To achieve this, one must foster a culture that embraces good data in, bad data out. Right now, you're likely living in the red zone. Bad data in, bad data out. When we begin the process of cleaning our data, we move to the yellow zone. Good data in, bad data out. The goal is within the green zone. Good data in, good data out. But we can't just rely on this to cast gold over our data. We must standardize data. And this is where governance begins. So let's talk about the steps to success in our building our clean data. First, we need to build a governance team, and we need to prepare your data to actually be cleaned. And then we're going to get to the process of actually cleaning your data. Let's go to a governance team. So how do we begin to build a data governance team? We need to identify the right team members. And this should be made up of people who directly work with the data each day. They have a key stake in the data, and some who can champion the good data concept to others. Once the data has been scrubbed and analyzed, the governance team can implement policies and procedures around the data input and where it lives. Let's prepare to clean. So when we prepare to clean our data, we should go through a certain set of questions. We should ask, from which data sets do we want to pull information? It could be that we don't need all of the data sets that we thought we were previously using. So this is a time to get rid of some of those data sets that are of no value to us. What type of errors need to be identified? Here we can identify things that might be causing us to have inaccurate data. And once we go through a set of checks and balances and controls, we can identify what those errors are. So how are the errors identified, and where do these errors occur? Let's clean the data. When we're cleaning the data, some of the things that we're looking for are duplicate data, blank data, data with errors, data that's incomplete and have improper formatting, along with extra spaces and proper case. All of these are things that should be resolved while we're cleaning our data. Now, we've talked a little bit about business data as it comes to us in a database. Let's talk now about record management. While we don't often think of our files or records as a cost risk association with data management, it is actually the largest component of data most organizations own. We're used to rows upon rows of files stored in cabinets that may linger through the halls and into the storage rooms, collecting dust. And often these files are never touched once put in place. And that's where the need for records management enters. Instead of putting our valuable information, the data that we've collected in these papers, into these boxes, we should really move them into some sort of content database. That brings us to record management. With record management, some of our traditional ways that we manage those things rely on retention policies and content organizers and metadata. I'm going to use SharePoint as a really good example of how we can tie retention policies and metadata to our assets, to our documents, and make them more valuable. If I move into my content organization, then I can see here that I have some dependencies that rely on consistent and custom enterprise content types. There are file plan rules that are based on metadata. And these still rely on people to attach the correct metadata to the appropriate content. Retention policies are a unified set of intelligent policies. We can apply a single policy to an entire organization or just specific locations or users. We can then decide proactively whether to retain content, delete content, or both. Retain and then delete the content. Apply a policy to all content or just content meeting certain conditions, such as content containing specific keywords or specific types of sensitive information. When we look at policy labels empower workers with consistent retention rules they control across all workloads. This is widely available in Microsoft Outlook and SharePoint. And you can see here we have kind of like a 3-zone management model that allows us a way to label content to make sure that it's retained for the right amount of time. Look at this transitory label that says, hey, we're going to delete this content when it's 1 year old. And then we have the label of work in progress, which says we're going to delete content when it's 3 years old. When it's a business record and we decide that we need to retain the content for 5 years old, and then we can delete it, right? And we can also customize this policy when we need to. So no matter what we've done to clean, to apply labels, to go through, seeking out the errors and how to resolve them, all of your efforts will quickly fall to the wayside if data is not monitored and audited regularly. After all, it is through humans the data is input. Develop a system that works for your organization. This could be a monthly health check or an in-depth semi-annual audit. The most important aspect of checks and balances is to create a control group to measure against and be sure to adjust as your data mining meets change. That concludes our session on spring cleaning your data. I'd like to now open it up for any questions and answers that I might provide.
Thank you, Val. We did have a couple of questions come in. The first is around who should be able to access data?
That's a really good question. So when we're thinking about data, first we need to think about it on the front end. Who needs access to the data? Those people who need the data to achieve their daily task, to do their jobs, to make informed decisions. Those are the people who need access to the data on the front end. On the back end, who needs access to the data would be those who have administrative controls, but those who understand the complexity of the systems and the data that's input. To understand that changing a simple field name could have great implications down the line. These people need to understand how the system works. So before you put someone in place in that admin role of creating data and extracting data, you need to make sure that they really understand what happens when any type of change may occur to a certain set of data or a field of data.
Okay. The next question that came in is, how do you make sure your data is protected?
So another great question. We're all concerned about security. And we can ensure that our data is protected through encryption, through hard backups, and we want to make sure that we know that the source of where our data is being kept is completely protected. I'm going to take Microsoft, for example. If we store our data inside of SharePoint, we can feel 100% confident that our data is being backed up on a regular basis. And not only that it's being backed up on a regular basis, but we know that Microsoft has facilities all over the world. And so our data is constantly moving. We don't see it move and we don't even know that it's moving, but that's one of the ways that they protect our data. They're jumping it around, they're putting it in different places from time to time, so it's always protected. So I would make sure that we have a great backup system in place and that we are reviewing those backups on a very regular basis. I'm going to give you an example of why you want to do that. When I first started in the world of information technology, the company I worked for used a collaboration platform that was housed on a third-party server. And that company was supposed to perform regular backups. And while they performed incremental backups every so often, their full backups that were supposed to take place once every 3 to 6 months didn't take place. So when that server crashed, we actually lost 6 months of data that we could not get back, and it almost shut us down. So that's just an example of knowing where your data is stored and how it's being protected and how it's being backed up. Do we have any other questions?
Yep, one more question that just came in. Who in the organization should be able to influence the data or have influence on the data?
Influencers in data should be those who need the data to make informed decisions. If you're looking to scale your business, you're probably going to look to your sales team to understand what your opportunities are. You're going to look to your project team to understand where you are currently with current initiatives. And you'll probably also look to your HR department. Your HR department determines a lot of that data because they want to know if they can grow, right? And if you're asking that department for, to add headcount, then definitely they're going to look for numbers. And they're going to look for numbers throughout the organization to see where it makes sense to add that. Just as you are going to scale, you're going to be looking at numbers across the organization to see where it makes sense. So really, I would say almost everyone in your organization is an influencer based on what they do on a daily basis and how they record what they do on a daily basis.
Okay, we had a question come in around controls and audits. So what controls and audits should be put in place to ensure that my organization is staying within compliance?
So you'll want to enlist a group of people who really understand the data, first of all, and understand what it should look like. You'll want to put together that control group of data that everything should be measured against. So when you are testing your data and you're running those flows against that, then they'll be able to quickly pinpoint any errors and any gaps. And those controls should be updated on a regular basis, at the very least on a yearly basis. But as the needs of your organization change and the needs of data change, you're going to want to update that. You'll want to make sure that you have a really regular audit system in place. And this could be a manual audit. It could be a running of reports. And I recommend that you do this quarterly or semi-annually. I think organizations often think that, well, this is something that we can put off until next year. We can do this once a year. By the time you've done that, you have probably, if you've identified an error, if you've ever had to go through an audit and try to trace back where that system occurrence happened, then you know that that can be very tedious. So I would definitely recommend a semi-annual audit at the very least.
Okay. And then one last question that came in. For document management, what metadata needs to be captured?
You know, I would say that that's really an organizational question. The way you organize your information and the way you want to capture that data strictly is how you operate. We have, for example, I work with a company who's very sales oriented, and their metadata lies largely around what their customer PSAs are, professional services agreements. So they make sure to capture that metadata, which is very important to them. It just really depends on what you're looking for and what you need to measure. So when you are, putting in a group of documents into SharePoint, what are some of the things that you need to capture? Is it the year? Is it the project? Is it the project number? Is it the customer name? These are things that you need to really think about. Like, when I'm going to go pull this data, what are some of the keywords that I'm going to need to pull from that? And so from there, you can kind of think of, okay, this is what my metadata should be. This is what my labels should be.
Okay, thank you very much, Val. That is all the questions that we had come in. I would like to thank everybody for joining us and give you a little peek at what we have coming up. Next week, we have our Spring Clean Your Systems Security Edition with Mitch McCullum. It will be on Wednesday, May 6th at 12:30 p.m. Feel free to join us by signing up at redlevelgroup.com/springsecurity. Now, this whole epidemic has thrust a lot of us to work from home or work remote situations, which means it is essential to have a really good collaboration tool. Now, we have turned to Microsoft Teams for our collaboration tool and have developed a Microsoft Teams Essentials training that is actually hosted by Val. And we have several dates coming up over the next couple of weeks that we would love to have you at. So feel free to register for those events at redlevelgroup.eventbrite.com. And with that, I'd like to say thank you to Val and thank you to all of you for your time today. Have a great day.
Thank you.